Before you watch this episode of our cityCURRENT radio show, I want to invite you to join cityCURRENT's e-learning and online personal development platform called GrowthCurrent. I'm Jeremy Park, host of the cityCURRENT radio show and CEO of cityCURRENT. GrowthCurrent is your exclusive ticket to attend virtual events with global thought leaders, national guest speakers, and experts who can help you grow personally and professionally. It gives you access to success secrets, lessons learned, learning modules, and so much more. Being online, you can join us from anywhere in the world. Subscriptions are only $8 a month, or you can do bulk subscriptions for your team. Check out growthcurrent.com to learn more and to join us in our efforts to power the good. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the cityCURRENT radio show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, powering the good in our community. And with that, we're honored to kick it off talking about Palmer Home for Children. We are joined by their CEO, Drake Bassett, and they're doing amazing good. So Drake, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Really happy to be here. Thank you.
So 125 years, this year is your anniversary. So definitely a long legacy. Let's start there. Give us a little history lesson for Palmer Home for Children.
Sure. It has been an exciting 125 years, but that's a lot of time and a lot of phases of our evolution. But it really goes back to the core mission, all the way back to Columbus, Mississippi, when, several folks noticed that there were children on the street. And that sounds like today's terms, but that's the reality even then. Some of it a byproduct of the Civil War. The South was hit particularly hard. And you see organizations like ours in history popping up right about that time. But we were formalized in 1895 and have been in existence since then. And as we like to say from time to time, we've navigated two turns of centuries, and we've also navigated two world wars and the Great Depression, and just a lot of different steps through history where there have always been a need for children who are vulnerable and they need a place to call home. And so we have changed with the times, but our mission has remained the same.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about what the pandemic means and some of those changes, but obviously, to your point, staying mission focused. Talk about the mission, talk about the programs. You do a lot, so go ahead and dive in.
Yeah, well, I think the mission, and I think that's what excites people about Palmer Home when they get around it, is that we always try to put a question on the table when we get into discussions about how we serve, which is what's in the best interest of the child. When you look at a child that's coming out of a crisis situation, sometimes homes are coming apart for different reasons. Sometimes drugs are a factor. Sometimes crime is a factor. Sometimes it's just families trying to work it out. And that's always been a part of the mix, but we've always been here to try to respond to that situation. And so the mission is when there's a child or children, historically, we've taken in sibling sets together. We want to be here to support that family, but also to care for their children. And so we've done that in a variety of different ways. Everybody mostly knows Palmer Home as a residential kind of service. And in Columbus for many years, we had a residential campus. We have a campus now in Hernando with 6 homes. And that's where children typically go when they come out of crisis. And our goal there is to stabilize, is to give them peace, to give them calm, let them get their footing when it comes to education. We begin some counseling. We obviously begin to introduce very gently some spiritual concepts that help them understand the bigger picture. All of that's designed to calm their life down, let them feel like they're loved, let them feel like they're supported. But we've also introduced these additional capabilities. It's not our desire that they stay on a residential campus forever. So we've introduced foster care, our own version. We train, we equip, we staff people in foster care. And we're happy to see children begin to move to more permanent homes. We hope that it's one and done. We hope that they leave and go to a family where they can be permanent. And then we pay attention to some of the most critical years, 18 to 24. Historically, throughout the world, organizations like ours have served children, but when they get to be 16 or 18, they're kind of on their own. Well, you know the statistics. I know the statistics of kids that drop out of school, suffer in crime, self-harm. Even the suicide rate is primarily driven by children who've come from broken home situations. So we want to support ages 18 through 24 and see them make their way to independence, actually break the cycle. That's our transitional program. So we've introduced new services, new capabilities. The mission's the same, but we're doing it in different ways today.
Yeah, and you're evolving with the times, and I think that's a very important element to this. And when you talk about kind of new exciting opportunities, you have a wellness center now. So talk about the wellness center and the campuses and kind of dive in there.
Yeah, well, thank you. What we realized was that, if you were to go back 100 years, like most organizations, there were these large homes where kids stayed on one floor and that sort of thing. Today, our children are in individual homes with individual families, or they're in foster homes or whatever. The services that we want to provide by way of a wellness center, and it's named that for that reason, which is it creates layers of wellness, whether it's counseling, whether it's play therapy for young children who have come out of traumatic situations, whether it's educational tutoring that's required because a child's missed out of school for 2 or 3 years, or just the basics of a gymnasium and a swimming pool where kids can play and where they can be kids, and where we can put them in structured environments where, they get to be around mentors and they get to be around people that show that they care. As well as our administrative capability, all of that's a hub. And for us, it's sort of the heart of our campus and the heart of our home. And that wellness center we're hoping to open that in 2021. We would love to see that happen. So we're going to go hard at it. We've been raising money for it. We have a great opportunity right now for matching gifts all the way up to $600,000. And we would love to see people participate by the end of the year. But all of that's designed to go back to our mission. How do we help a child do better given the circumstances that they cannot control? And how do we make it possible for them to have a great life?
Speaking of that, this will be a two-part question, first for the children and then second for you all as an organization, but how are the children navigating the pandemic? So in other words, what effect are you seeing on them mentally and physically, obviously, with just how they're navigating through the pandemic, obviously with your help and support, but how are they holding up?
It's always interesting to think about it from a child's perspective. And I think that's a great question. I think, first of all, it's just understanding what's happening. If we as adults are kind of running around saying, what is this? And it has been a crisis. People have suffered. Jobs have been lost. People have been unsure. That has a way of cascading down to our own children and cascading down to certainly the children that we care for. So I think part of it is just remaining confident, remaining that we can, navigate something like this, but providing assurance that they're going to be okay. At the same time, we've paid attention to very strict protocol. We had to quarantine the entire campus from a safety standpoint back in March and April. And as we all kind of worked our way back out, they've begun to, get out and participate in things that they've done before, but all with the protocol that we're all living with. I think the biggest thing in those types of environments, though, is to create an atmosphere of assurance. I was reminded recently I read commentary from older men at the time, but they remember being boys during World War II in London. And they said, we weren't sure of everything that was going on, but we had a great time. Well, there's also the truth that kids find a way to have a great time no matter what. So, we sometimes are very, very serious, and they're still kids. They find a way to get out the back door and go play or do something. But that kind of puts some humor into it, and also just some reminders that, at the end of the day, we're working with kids, and sometimes they make us feel smarter. But reality is they've got it figured out,
So talk about, on your end, I know that when you talk about working with the families and some of the training programs, obviously those have gone virtual. You mentioned having to quarantine the campus. What are some of the pivots and the changes that you all have had to go through as an organization due to COVID-19 and the pandemic?
Yeah, I think the biggest pivot is just, first of all, remembering that things are not normal. Now, we work sometimes in a bubble and we think, okay, it's not out there. Then all of a sudden we get back out to the world and we realize, okay, the world's changed. So you do have to adapt. Our training is virtual. And so we've had to redo that in a way that makes it really engaging. And that's been a great challenge for us. So we're training foster families, we're training mentors with our whole child initiative approach. And we're communicating differently. We finally got together as a leadership team here a few weeks ago. with the right kind of protocol, but we realized how long it had been since we were in person with each other, but we'd made it work with the Zoom calls that everybody's had and re-had, so all of those things are real. Our events have changed. So we normally have Mudbug, for instance, in Hernando. Well, this year it was drive by and pick up your food and contribute. But, it was so great because while we were out there, we got to see people as they came through and just be reminded that we're all in this together as a community. So I think as much as there have been challenges, the reality is, we are connected, and I think we're finding those ways to do that.
Talk a little bit about just your impact outside of the Mid-South, because when you look at other cities like Nashville, you have some programs that are extending. So I think it's important to just cover off on your impact, that it is far reaching.
Well, thank you. We are working to be licensed for foster care, both in Alabama and in Tennessee. But we have been for a number of years licensed to serve the prison, women's prison specifically. So women come into prison, discover that they're expecting a child. And the question is, what now? Where does this child go? Well, for many years, we've established trust and credibility in the Tennessee women's prison. And so when a woman has her child, she places that child with us, and we have a family that's going to care for that child and keep the child connected with the mother who's incarcerated, which has produced some powerful stories of working together as sort of a new family structure and helping these mothers as they come out of prison reunify with their children. That's our goal. Doesn't always happen. Life is tough. But the reality is, when we're able to keep a child with their biological family, the child has the promise of doing much, much better. So we've been there for several years. We love that ministry in Nashville, and we're excited to see it grow. It's what we refer to as family care.
Yeah, and I think it just shows the innovative approach, the support network to really do everything that's possible to keep a family unit together, and the links that you go, the links that you go to be able to make that possible. I think that's an important storyline. Talk about how we can help. As you mentioned with the Wellness Center, you've got the matching grant opportunities and funds. And so fundraising to support your efforts, especially right now where across the nation, fundraising sadly is down for nonprofits. So fundraising is a really critical need, but talk about the different ways we can help.
Well, I appreciate that. We're always trying to grow, but things like COVID hit us from two directions. One is it hits us financially. So operational gifts are greatly appreciated. But on the upside, we've been serving more and more children through COVID. And what I mean is that's why we're here. So when people give to us, they can trust that we're very, very busy with the mission. COVID has produced stress on some families, and we've had to take more children in. So those operational gifts, just $10, $100, whatever it looks like to people, we just love for people to participate in this. At the same time, we are building the Wellness Center. We have a matching opportunity. So they can go to our website, palmerhome.org, see all of these opportunities. And we just love for people to be connected. We covet prayer. We believe that means the most to us. We covet relationships with people so that they can understand how they're making a difference in the lives of these children. And by all means, we certainly seek funding when the opportunity presents itself.
Give us, I know you've got many, but give us a success story that stands out on your end, or the first one that kind of pops into your mind when you talk about, and you don't have to name names specifically, but when you talk about the work you do and the impact it has, give us a success story.
Well, we've been moving offices here a couple of times past couple of years, and every once in a while we come across a group of pictures, and all of a sudden I'm going through pictures of moments that have gone by in the past 8 or 9 years that I've been here. And I see children when they were very young, and I can see their face of uncertainty. And there is one little girl in particular that I had a chance to meet right when I got here. And she was a beautiful little girl, bright blue eyes. And the picture that I came across is of her sitting in my lap at one of our picnics. And she was always curious, and she always had questions, but she was very shy. I'm very happy to know today that she has been safe throughout her entire process with us, that she's growing, that she's learning. We've helped her with some of her emotional challenges. And when I see these children grow, when I see some of our children, for instance, who are now 18 and 19 going to college, when I see them getting their driver's license, or when I see one or two of them, taking the oath as they go into the military, moments like that make all of the hard work worth it. But that little girl in particular reminds me that that's why we're here. She needed a safe place to be. We were here. And as a group together, I think we've made a huge difference in her life, and she's going to have a wonderful life.
Give us one tip related to the training that you provide your foster parents and those that you work with, give us one tip for those parents who are listening or watching this video that can help them be more successful with their children. So what's a tip to help them, especially right now, just given everything that's going on? What's something that you would offer to a parent to be more intentional in guiding their children?
It's interesting now that I'm a grandfather. I have 4 grandchildren and I have 4 children. And in working with our children, what I've come to realize is that every child is unique. It's so easy for us to project onto children what we think they should be or who we think they are. And so, especially children who might have come from trauma, we really don't know what the story is in full. And so I guess my tip would be is that to the best of our ability, if we can think every day how they are seeing things, how they are experiencing things, what does it really mean to them? Because often they'll be in the back seat of the car just driving along and we think they're good to go. They may be experiencing something very, very different. So we can learn to ask key questions. What are you thinking about? How do you feel? And we don't do that every day, but we find the right times to do that. But understanding that each child is unique and they are experiencing things their way. And instead of us just assuming that we know it, take the time to better understand them. Let them learn to communicate and talk and express things and accept it and receive it. Because that way we build relationship, we build trust, and we build the opportunities, more and more opportunities for our children, our own children, to come to us and say, can we talk about this? And I think those build greater bonds and produce, the kind of relationships that we want. And it produces healthy children because they have places that are safe, places they can trust, and places where they can communicate.
Yeah, that's great advice. Wrap up. You mentioned it before, but mention it again. Website, social media, phone numbers. Where do we go to learn more about Palmer Home?
Always go to palmerhome.org. We're there. Our website was redone this past year. So if you haven't been in a while, go check it out. I think you'll see our different service lines. You'll see opportunities to connect. But yeah, we feel like, hey, we just finished 125 years. We're ready to do the next 100 years. So we want everybody to join with us and come along and help us just continue to change lives the best we possibly can.
Well, Drake, thank you for all you and your team do. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Great to be here. Good to see you as always.